Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Tria Raimondo, and I'm the Director of Global Development Programs here at the Council. It's my pleasure to welcome you all this evening for our second Women in Global Development Forum program of the season. I would also like to thank our sponsors for their continued support of the Women in Global Development Forum, our lead sponsor, Horizon Pharma, and our supporting sponsor, USG, and our patron sponsors, the Franco Family Foundation, the Whole Tooth Trust, and Ashley and Avery McCall. Thank you to those who joined us last Friday for our 6th annual Global Health and Development Symposium. If you were unable to join, I urge you to check out our content on the website. This fall, we have many exciting programs lined up. On Wednesday, October 11th, Senator Dick Durbin and several panelists will join us to discuss human trafficking. And on Wednesday, November 8th, Dr. Paul Farmer, co-founder of Partners in Health, will be here for discussion and screening of his documentary, Bending the Arc. Please visit our website for more information. As many of you might have noticed, our evening programs now begin at 5:30 and end at 6:30. We welcome our members and guests to stay for a reception following the program as well. Turning back to tonight's program, it's on the record and we're live streaming, so please silence your phones. We will also be taking questions from the stage as well as through our online survey application. So type into your browser chi.cnf.io and select today's program. There you can ask questions or vote on questions. Views expressed by individuals we host are their own and do not represent institutional positions or views of the Council. A recent Oxfam report highlights that just 8 people have as much wealth as the poorest half of the world's population, approximately 3.6 billion people. While poverty is a serious concern, the problem of rising inequality caused by continuous wealth concentration reflects a broader economic and social problem. In order to address rising inequality and poverty, Nobel Peace Prize laureate Muhammad Yunus established the Grameen Bank in 1976 in his home country of Bangladesh. To date, Dr. Yunus's award-winning microfinance model has empowered over 150 million people worldwide, with 97% of the loans offered to women. It has reduced poverty, unemployment, and incentivized entrepreneurship among low-income individuals in Bangladesh and beyond. I look forward to hearing from Dr. Yunus on the progress that's been made and his new vision for an economic system that tackles worldwide poverty, unemployment, and the environmental degradation. He'll be joined in conversation by Susan Davis, former president and CEO of BRAC USA. I hope you had a chance to see the speaker bios on screen, but please allow me to highlight a few of their additional achievements. Muhammad Yunus has served as the Global Commission on Women's Health, the Advisory Council for Sustainable Economic Development, and the UN Expert Group on Women in Finance, and is currently a UN Foundation board member. Susan Davis was on the founding board of the Grameen Foundation and served in various roles for 17 years and has lived in Bangladesh for over 4 years, working with the Ford Foundation. Previously, she served as senior advisor to the Director General of the International Labor Organization. Following today's presentation, Dr. Yunus's most recent book, A World of Three Zeros, The New Economics of Zero Poverty, Zero Unemployment, and Zero Net Carbon Emissions, will be available for signing and purchase from the bookseller. Thank you, and please welcome to the stage Dr. Yunus and Susan Davis.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. And welcome to you, Professor Yunus.
Thank you.
We're so happy to be here in Chicago with the Council talking about your life's work. Somehow you spent your lifetime worrying about the poorest people on the planet, especially women of the planet, trying to figure out how to help them, help themselves, have a better life. You came up with this novel idea, the Grameen Bank, which is, I guess, you describe in your new book, a trust-based social business, right? So little loans without collateral. And you won a Nobel Prize, and so did the bank. Right? You and Taslima Begum received that back in 2006. And you made sure that these women owned it and governed it. Why is ownership and governance so important in your vision of economics?
Well, thank you, Susan. Well, coming to Chicago, it feels like I'm reliving my life again. I see Ron and Mary here. This is part of the whole story. And yourself, very much part of the story. And Edel Simmons is right here. So everybody who are involved in a very active way in helping this grow up and take a shape. Initially, we were very determined that it has to be done, it's working, people are benefiting from it, despite the naysayers coming up with 101 reasons why it shouldn't be done, why it cannot happen, why it will collapse, why you cannot expand, why you cannot survive, all kinds of things. But we were kind of determined that we'll see the end of it. And that end never came to stop us, but gave us more hope, more determination, and continue. Today, it became known as microcredit. Microfinance is done globally. But right from the beginning, one of the issues that I was trying to see, focusing on women, it didn't come like the way it is right now. It came because, again, another of my stubbornness about it, I was making allegation against the bank, saying that bank deliberately designed to skip those people. It's by design, it's not by omission. The system, the institution is built in such a way, it serves the people who already have lots of money. It doesn't serve the people who don't have money. I said that should be done otherwise. The bank should be lending money to people who don't have money, rather than lending money to have other people. Then I pointed out that not only did deny this service to the poor people, they also denied to all women, not just poor women. And I gave the example that look at the way you behave. Not even 1% of your borrowers, commercial banks borrowers in Bangladesh, happen to be women. So I said, this is absolutely wrong. It's again deliberate, it's not accidental. So when I began, I wanted to make sure half the borrowers are women. That was our first decision. It was extremely tough to make it happen, because women themselves said, no, don't give it to me, give it to my husband. We said, no, to you, not to your husband. So that was a kind of a struggle. And I kept explaining to my students who were working with me, saying that no matter how many times they say that they cannot do it, they're afraid to touch money, their husbands should take it, you always remember this is not her voice. It is the voice of the history what made her. So that history got so much in her that she cannot overcome that history. So she sees things through the prism of that history. So she's covered all the negative experience that she had. So she sees that to protect herself is to withdraw herself. That's the only protection she has. Otherwise, being a woman, she committed something terrible mistake. That it was something wrong for the family that she is a girl rather than a boy. And they always reminded her that you should have been a boy rather than a girl. So she doesn't want to disrupt anything. So I tell my students that, look, our job is to go back again and again, peel off these layers and layers of fear and history. It takes time. Overnight, you cannot overcome it. So don't give up. Continue to do that. And we did. They were very patient. And my ultimate is, if someone finally overcome that fear, if start taking money and making benefit and success, then other women become curious. How did she do that? We thought it's impossible, but she did it. And they want to copy her. They want to follow her. And that will be the snowball effect that will happen. It took us 6 years to have this result to come out. After 6 years of our initial operation, we came to that 50-50 level. And then we saw this, to retain this, we need a more organized way. So when the challenge of institutionalization came, framework of bank came, we said it has to be a separate institution. In the beginning, it was just a project of the central bank, if you remember. We said, no, it cannot go on like this, it will disappear if it is a project. It has to be an institution, it has to be a bank. So I was designing that bank, what kind of bank it would be. Obviously, I thought the borrower should own it, rather than me, rather than the central bank, rather than the government. I was always opposed to having government ownership, because our experience in government ownership is very bad. So I said it should be owned by them. It was again a big struggle. How can poor women own a bank? So finally, we got it done and made it happen.
And that's how you got the help of South Shore's community bankers that you referred to, Ron Guzminski and Mary Houghton, that are here. So back in helping convince the government about the formation of Grameen Bank in 1983,
Yes,
right?
indeed.
Yeah.
Their voice was very important because they're coming from Chicago.
So,
the banking
so it's interesting. You took on the economic system which had a gross inequality. Half of the population had access, the other half didn't. So gender inequality was the first. In your new book, which we're here to celebrate the launch of today, you talk about another very worrying inequality, and that's this concentration of wealth. In fact, you cite the Oxfam study that says now that there are 8 people that have the equivalent wealth of 3.5 or 3.6 billion people. So half the world's wealth is held by 8 people. And you actually know these guys, right?
Everybody knows those guys.
No, but you know them personally. Like,
Yes.
why are you worried about this? Aren't they nice guys?
They're nice guys. They're nice guys, friendly guys. We take selfies with them. They do great things. I keep saying that they're not bloodthirsty people, the kind of thing that you imagine that somebody is bloodthirsty and getting the poor people's wealth. They're nice people. But the wealth keep on falling on their feet. That's the system that I'm talking about. The system is designed, the capitalist system is designed a way that all the wealth from the bottom is sucked up. The system sucks it up, not the person. And sucks up and puts it on the top. So it becomes, I give the similar analogy of a mushroom, huge mushroom on the top, all owned by those 8 people. Tomorrow maybe 7 people, next day maybe 5 people, and continue like that. It is always there. It's not sudden
A
thing.
mushroom cloud is usually thought of something else.
And I know, that's why it is almost that kind of threatening cloud this is. And then the stem coming from the cloud, that's is the wealth owned by 99%, 99.5% of the rest of the population. The population out there is in significant
So you're saying
proportion.
it's a systemic issue.
It's a very systemic issue.
So in this book, you talk about us being in a deep crisis. One of the points of the world's economic crisis, which started in the US in 2008, was this financial crisis with the failure of our banking system. And you make a case that we're in serious crisis and it's time to actually reinvent
Wake up.
capitalism.
Absolutely.
Well, a lot of people are woke about this, but
But not in the action way.
so what do we need to do? What's the root causes of this
Yeah,
crisis? Why
just
do you go back to Adam Smith?
Just quickly, this concentration of wealth is not something suddenly capitalist system got into. It's right from the beginning, but it was imperceptible.
I
It's
see.
very slow motion.
We didn't see it.
We didn't see it. It happened, you say, well, it's okay. It's some poor rich people, of course, they own land, so what, a few business, so what. But today, the speed is becoming speedier and speedier and speedier. Now we come to a stage where it is in terms of 1% and 2%, not percentage anymore. You know the name, you know how much wealth he has, where he has, you know them all. So this is the problem. And tomorrow it will be worse. It is speeding up so fast that the changes will happen suddenly. And the impact of it in our politics, in our society, in our businesses, everything will crush the whole society. Because the anger that will accumulate, if it is in a slow motion, you don't feel anger because you feel it's okay, it's like yesterday. Suddenly you say yesterday is one thing, today is something else. So people get very angry. And that will express itself in political
Are you
way.
sure we're going to get angry? I mean, they're giving us
Well,
lots of TV to watch, right?
I gave the example of Brexit. I said maybe Brexit is one of those things. People got angry with other people coming from Europe, Central Europe, taking jobs and so on, and politicians of their type, that this is a good explanation to get themselves elected in the positions. So they explained, yes, if you vote for us, we'll stop them. And one way to stop them is to get out of the European Union. As long as we are in the European Union, we have to keep the door open. So we have to shut the door. And in order to shut the door, let's get out of the Union. And that's what they have done. And Trump's explanation was the same way, build the wall. So they came out of the Union. This one is a more dramatic one, build the wall, visa, and all this. So this is the same anger, and this anger will become more explosive
By the
as
way,
we come.
sorry about the bashing the Muslims thing.
No, all those things
Yeah,
together. And then now see the German election. You have almost the same thing. 13% of population voted for extreme right,
Right.
And they never had a position in the parliament. Now they are in a big way in the parliament. So again, this is the frustrations that you encash in politics. So those kind of politics will become stronger and stronger, and will be negative politics, not the positive politics. So I said, today still is playing within the political realm. Tomorrow it will be more critical that we would have. So before it comes to that stage, why don't we get aware, recognize it? People don't even recognize that this is happening. With just one news and once a year when the survey report or some study report comes, you put it in the newspaper and then forget about it. Of course, some people will be rich. So what? I get a job, I have a car, I have my house, it's okay. So they compromise, but that compromise will not last long. That's my point. And it will continue.
So if this is built into our system of capitalism, what on earth are you recommending?
I'm recommending the same experience that I have gone through, what lessons I have learned. I said economic system, the capitalist system is fundamentally wrong because it's interpreted two things. It interpreted human beings in the wrong way. It's basic.
Are you advocating socialism?
That's not what I said. I said.
So it's not.
Words in my mouth.
It's not socialism. You're
No.
advocating what?
I'm saying that if we go back to the basic interpretation of human being, they interpreted it by saying that human beings are driven by personal interest. Personal interest is a very narrow vision for a human being. This makes human being too small. That's not what human beings always was, never was. But that's what made the rock bottom of the capitalist system, that human being is driven by self-interest. And that's self-interest celebrated, encouraged, and all the institutions are built for that purpose. So we became a selfish society, selfish system. All we do, make money, make money. If you make more money than me, you are more successful than me. It doesn't matter who else does what. So everything is about making money. And that prompted greed to come out very forcefully. And the greed got into super greed. Super greed got into speculation, making casinos in thing. This was the 2008 thing happened.
The collapse
Casinos,
of the
collapse of the
global
whole
scene.
system, that
Yeah.
you pushed the system in such a way that it couldn't take it anymore. Then its solution is also very interesting. Government came out with the bailout packages. See?
Right.
They benefit both ways. They bailout packages and came out with the theory they are too big to be
To fail.
You cannot let them fail. It's too big, you cannot even let you fail. So we have to keep you alive. So by implication, they said they are too big to fail, you are too small to recognize, too small to care about. So that's the kind of system we came out of it. All I'm suggesting, why don't you recognize the human being as they are? Selfish and selfless. Selfless part, you cannot separate from human being. You may have a small selfless part, big selfless part. It's up to you, up to your upbringing, up to your schooling, whatever it is. But it is there, deeply rooted in you. But somehow it is not allowed into economics, in the business. They say business is business. What does it mean?
That's true. We separate everything,
Absolutely.
right? Business
is business.
Charity.
So within this, you cannot do anything. So I said, we interpret selflessness into the business. So there will be two kinds of business, one based on selfishness, which you already have, another based on selflessness, which I'm proposing and I'm practicing. That's what I developed, and many are following that, called social business. A business to solve problem rather than make money for yourself. A same person can do both because these two things have in the same person. So that is the difference when you say socialism. Socialism is all people are bad, the good people are followers of that. Everybody is good people. But they have to develop that. So in our school, we have to tell our students that there are two kinds of businesses. Once we start doing that, put this into the textbook, then young people will come up with, what do I do now? Which one should I do? They have to answer that question themselves. Teacher cannot tell them. Teacher may suggest what is going on, but cannot tell what you should do. This is up to you. You want to change the world? You want to create a world of your own, which is a thing of your dream? Or you want to just make yourself rich? Up to you. Or you can pursue both, see where you want to go. So this is one issue. Second issue, I said, fundamentally wrong in the capitalist system because of the nature way, in the way it is developed. Everybody is supposed to work for somebody else. I said, that's a totally wrong concept. Human beings are not born to work for anybody. But you push them as you grow, as if my life starts with the preparing. First phase of my life is to preparing myself so that I can be a good worker for somebody else. I said, that's a shame. I'm not preparing myself for being at service to somebody else. I'm preparing myself to be myself and bring out my unlimited creative capacity that I have. And I keep on insisting all human beings, irrespective of its position, its background, and so on, is packed with unlimited creative capacity. The responsibility of the society is to help the person unleash that creative capacity. And that's what we fail. Instead, we said, no, you be so small, you do an expert in this so that you do good in the job interview and then get the job. Once you get the job, your life is done. All you have to do now is to continue and continue until you retire, that whole business is over. I said, no, that's not what human being is. I try to refer to the prehistoric days when we were in the caves, when we were running around looking for ways to survive. I said, when we were in the caves, you're not sending our job application from cave number 5 to cave number 10. Do you have a job for me? We never thought about that. And that's why we survived. If we didn't find a job and sat idle in the caves, we'll be done, finished. Today, we get away. Young, energetic people, creative people, sitting there saying, I'm unemployed. I'm not been hired by anybody. It doesn't make sense why a fully energetic human being, a youth, who is at the peak of its creativity and energy, sit there saying that I'm unemployed. As if the system has put a spell on that person. So I said, I'm protesting against that. I said, we should rediscover ourselves as entrepreneurs, and I give the examples of microcredit. I said, look at this, all the women, millions and millions of women. They take $30 loan, $50 loan, not to find a job, to start a business. If illiterate women from villages who never left their village in their life can become an entrepreneur with $50 loan, what's wrong with all the young people in the world?
Especially the children of the Grameen borrowers,
sure,
right?
Sure.
You were saying, your mother owns a bank. What are you looking for a job for? That's just great. So these are three big shifts in capitalism. Creating an inclusive financial system, looking at another form of business based on, instead of our traditional business, based on selfishness, social business based on altruism or selflessness, and then shifting from job seeker to job creator, everyone as an entrepreneur. That's the heart of this. So everybody hears this and goes, all right, is that what we're talking about, a vision of the world, 3 zeros?
3 zeros.
And these 3 zeros come from what? This part of is how you're summarizing, right?
Summarizing. One always talking about it, poverty, and I'm one who is saying year after year that poverty should not belong to civilized human society. It should belong to museums.
Right.
So this is the interpretation of zero poverty. And that was adopted by the whole world, that we came to the Millennium Development Goal.
Right.
Number 1 goal is to reduce poverty by half by 2015. And at that time, it looked like it's a crazy idea. It will never happen. This is a kind of UN jargon that fool around with words and so on, never get it done. But we take it seriously in many countries. And Bangladesh achieved that goal, not only in 2015, 2.5 years before 2015,
Right.
reached that goal of reducing poverty by half. And with that trend, with that projection we see, we can easily go to zero very soon. And the UN came back with the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. Number 1 goal is again zero poverty by 2030. And our calculation, as we see the projections, we will achieve it much ahead of 2030, come to the zero poverty level. It's possible. So if it's possible in a country like Bangladesh, where it's extreme poverty, and that's the name of the country is seen as, it can be done anywhere. This is simply a question of unleashing the energy of the people so that they can pull themselves out of the thing. I keep saying that poverty is not created by the poor people. Poverty is created by the system that we build. That's what, again, comes back to the same thing. I keep saying that financial service is so critical for poor people or any poor person. It's like economic oxygen. If you don't have oxygen, you gasp, you cannot breathe, and finally you die. I said, these are the people who don't have that economic oxygen, so they are in the dying condition. You give them the economic oxygen, suddenly they are alive, suddenly they are active, they are contributing, they are taking care of themselves. But no institutions ever built in the entire history of capitalist system to make that happen. They're so busy putting the money in the hands of the people who already have tons and tons of it. So therefore, almost half the population of the entire world has nothing to do with the financial system. So that was continuously saying. And then the zero carbon emission, net carbon emission. This is about 42 years now. The whole world is moving gradually, step by step. They used to be looked at like loonies, crazy people saying things. And it took time for people to look at them seriously. And after all these years, the whole world came together, so much debate, and agreed on basic idea. We want to create a world where we will not emit carbon to the extent that we will destroy ourselves. That's Paris Agreement signed. Everybody signed. And again, what happens? The United States withdraws from it suddenly, without any preparation, without any consultation. It took years and years of consultation. And just one press statement is enough to withdraw.
What does that mean for your country? What does it mean for Bangladesh?
Terrible, because we are the victims of global warming. You are familiar with the country. It's a small country with huge population.
Right.
And the one that I mentioned, that if you put all the population of the entire world, 7.5 billion people on the planet in the United States, the density that it will create in the United States, Bangladesh density is worse than that even right today. So that's the kind of density we have. But it's a very flat country. 1/4 of the country is below 1 meter above the sea level. So if the sea level rises, we get hit. And people have to be displaced. People have to be removed from those areas because they cannot grow their food. The salinity takes over the land and all that. So we are getting into that harder and harder issue. And many island nations will completely disappear.
So right now, I mean, you've just coming out of terrible floods where over probably 1,500 people have died in Bangladesh, and you probably saw on television the floods in Houston and along Texas, Florida, now the Caribbean. So climate change and a strategy to get to a different future, that's part of your vision of retooling capitalism. So help us to understand the social business idea. I mean, I think a lot of people here understand microfinance and have heard about the success of now more than, 300 million families participating around the world, 1.5 billion people. But social business, give us some examples of how that would work to tackle climate change or poverty, or how people are creating their own jobs.
And the climate change always feeling was that it's the government who has to fix it, get the business to fix it. So we're always pushing it on that side. It's important because that's where the prime responsibility is. But we citizens, individuals, have a tremendous role to play. How to have our lifestyle in a way we don't destroy our planet. I said, why can't we classify our consumer goods? Green consumer good, yellow consumer good, and red consumer good, something like that. So I always go for green consumer good because I want to protect the planet. Yellow, I'm not sure, so I don't want to even go near it. That's okay. Red, absolutely no way. I will not go because I'm contributing to the global warming and so on. So if we can do that, if we can learn in schools, in our education, in our families, that my life as a child, I grow up saying my life, enjoyment of my life should not take away the enjoyment of life of anybody in this planet. Because my action is taking away the life of another person in someplace else. So I would be careful. I shouldn't do that.
Our consumption.
Consumption
So
pattern,
there's a question
lifestyle
on our live feed, the live streaming, what the average Joe or Jane can do. So this is one very concrete example. I mean, just the average American that has, say, 2 children would be the equivalent of a Bangladeshi having 60 children in terms of our consumption patterns.
Footprint.
The amount of energy and resources and the footprint on the planet. A lot of Americans don't realize that. They think, well, you Bangladeshis had too many people. That's what your problem is. Is that the case? Are you just having wild growth in your population?
It doesn't matter if you have a wild growth. The question is, will the planet survive? Definitely that big number of population is not the one responsible. It's a small number of people in a big country which is creating all
And
the
in
problems.
fact, you Bangladeshis have
Yeah.
controlled your,
Sure.
your population through family planning, so you're
Sure.
at replacement level.
Absolutely.
So in terms of how this idea works, explain how do you define social business?
Just to give an example
Yeah.
on the global warming side and what we can do as a social business. One of the things we did, we see Bangladeshi villages don't have electricity. So they have kerosene lamps. So it's kind of as the sun goes down, the whole country becomes dark. There's no light practically. So one idea that came some 22 years back, that can we bring renewable energy in the villages so that instead of kerosene lamp, they will have the electricity from renewable energy. So we came up with the idea of solar home system. And everybody said, no, no, not for Bangladesh. Bangladesh is not the country where it's feasible. It's good for Europe, North America and all that countries, but not for Bangladesh. Too expensive, too complicated. Nobody will know how to handle that. I said, we'll try. We did microcredit, it works. People say it's complicated. We didn't see anything complicated about it. People understand it, we understand it, we got together. So we'll make it happen. So we started selling solar home system. In the beginning, of course, people didn't understand, they resisted it, they were not interested in it. But gradually, one after another, through demonstration effect, they were coming to it. Then we made it very simple for them to understand. We tell them, look, how much money you spend on kerosene each month? They calculate, well, I spend on an average this money for kerosene every month. I said, okay, you give this money on the kerosene that you spend to me, and I give you today the solar home system. And you keep on paying that money for over 3 years. Every month you pay the same amount. And after 3 years, you don't have to pay me, anybody. It's all yours, it's free. Solar system is yours, I got my money back, that's fine. Immediately it makes sense to them. And particularly when your neighbor has one. There's a tremendous family pressure to have it yourself. And now we have reached 1.8 million homes with solar energy. Wow. And then many other competitors came because it's something that everybody got excited about. And we welcome the competitors because it's not a business to make money. It's a business to solve problems. The more competitors come, more collaborators in the business. So you work together. Now nearly 4 million homes in Bangladesh with solar energy.
4 million?
4 million homes.
That's fantastic.
And about 8 years back, we became the largest, the Grameen Shakti or the Grameen Energy became the largest off-grid electricity in the whole world. So without realizing what we are, because nobody else is doing it, we are the only one doing it, so we became the largest off-grid system in the whole world. Now we become multiple of that. So this is one simple, and we did it as a social business, meaning that we didn't want to make money by doing that. We wanted to solve the problem of the people and the planet at the same time.
But you're not giving them away free. What does it mean you don't want to make money? What is
meaning that we covered the cost.
So you
we covered
cover
the cost, and whatever surplus is plowed back into the system.
And what if you had investors?
Investors will get the investment money back, nothing more than that. It's a non-dividend company. Social business is a non-dividend company to solve human problem. You get your investment money back over time. That's the whole idea. But your mind is always focused on solving the problem. You want to create a money-making business, your focus is how to make money. So you design everything, manipulate everything for that purpose. So when you go to the social business, you forget about those mechanisms. You design things how to reach people to get the problem solved in the most efficient way, most affordable way, so that you can reach out to the bottommost person.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do you finance social businesses? Because this idea, you started promoting it quite a while ago, and it's spreading around the world. Tell us how you're financing social businesses.
First of all, one very simple one we do, we go to the businesses explaining, as like we explain, not individually, but they get curious about it. What is this? Does it happen really? And then they started thinking, maybe we should be doing one too. So many such big companies that started working with us to do social business like that. I don't know anything about them. I never heard about them, but they approached us and we explained to them. And they got very fascinated.
Like Danone?
Like Danone.
Like
We created
Intel?
Intel, yes, Intel Corporation, like McCain from Canada, Uniqlo from Japan, BSF from Germany, and many such companies around the world, big companies, medium companies, and so on. They came forward and want to do things. Now they're magnificent work they're doing. So they don't worry about money. The worries came about money. Just one quick example was Danone. They had problem with money. Huge company, it's a mega company. The
This
company
is the yogurt company.
Is the yogurt company. The company that we are creating in Bangladesh was a small company. The total investment needed was $500,000. That's about the investment we needed to create a special kind of yogurt to address the problem of malnutrition. We put all the micronutrients in the yogurt so the children will love it, they taste it, and so cheap that they can afford it, and they will overcome the malnutrition. That's the whole idea. We put our $500,000 right away when the company is registered, but Danone doesn't know how to do that. We keep reminding them, you have to put your $500,000. You didn't do that. They say, well, wait, we got into a problem. What is the problem? Our lawyers are objecting to it.
Oh.
What is the objection? Objection is shareholders gave you the money to the management to make more money.
Right.
You cannot take the shareholders' money, invest in this company, which tells you upfront they will never give you dividend. So this is a violation of the mandate of the shareholders. So we got stuck. They said we're trying to find a way. They found a way. They wrote to all the shareholders in the company, about 300,000 plus shareholders, that we are going to do this, and we are giving you dividend this year. The company did very well. If you are interested to invest on your own into this company, here is a box. You put a tick mark on it and tell us what percentage of your dividend you would like to put in this company. And say you are completely free to decide. This is nothing, no obligation. 98% of the shareholders signed up. It brought 35 million euro. Needed only $500,000, not a euro. They were very surprised at that reaction. They didn't expect that. And then employees got very upset. They started protesting from all over the world, wherever their factories are. Do you consider us a second-class citizen in the company? You consulted, you asked permission from the shareholders to contribute and invest in this company. What about us? You never bothered to even ask us. So the company was forced to write another letter to all the employees, same message. It brought 30 million euro. So we have 65 million euro. For what you need was $500,000. So what they did, Danone did, create a social business fund. Now that fund is being used in creating many social businesses around the world. And still the shareholders keep paying into that fund. Still the employees keep putting more money into that fund. So this is the way you've opened up the door. Suddenly you see things which you never saw before. It's totally unexpected. I kept telling all the hedge funds, all the pension funds, all insurance funds, I said, why don't you ask your shareholders, would they like to use 1% of their investments in your funds into social business? That 1% will be so powerful, we wouldn't know what to do with that money right away. It would take time. So, but our shareholders are just, how do you know? You never ask them. You ask the right question, people answer the right way. You never ask those questions. You assume all they want is money. That's all. And you go continue with that. I said, maybe many of them will give more than 1%. Okay, if you have, I can give you more than 1%. And I'm getting the money back. I still own the investment. All I'm sacrificing is the dividend on it. That's all.
So new financial structures are being invented. The social business funds, joint ventures with traditional business. I understand
CSR money.
Okay.
Converted to social business fund.
I understand you've even tapped Kiva, which started...
Kiva is a crowdfunding. They came forward that, can we do something for you? Asking for. So we said, why not? So we did that and it worked. People came out with small amount of money to taking a project of $100,000, $50,000 amount of investment they needed, and they did it in 24 hours, 48 hours. People came out. So
you're reinventing philanthropy along the way with capitalism, it sounds like. I want to open it up to the audience to be able to ask questions, and we're also getting lots of questions on the live stream feed that I'm getting on my iPad here, so thank you so much for doing that. There was a question, I'll just start off from one of the people online. I was very interested in this create your own job if you're unemployed. I think she's unemployed, and she wants to know, how do we do this in Chicago?
Fix the banks.
Fix the banks.
Because, or investors, because if an unemployed person in Chicago, a young person full of ideas, beautiful business plans, go to any investor or any banker that finance me, I'm sure they will call the security, get him out, creating trouble for us, because you have no introduction, nothing. Who are you? We don't do business like that. I'm saying you have to do business like that. That's the only solution. So we have created those businesses where we say nobody's rejected. Anybody can come up with the business idea, come with us, and we guarantee you nobody will be rejected. And we do that every day now. Thousands and thousands of young people come up with business ideas, and we keep on investing. This is a social business venture capital. It's not even a loan. We give them as a venture capital so that you start doing it and make it successful and return the money that we give you. We are not interested in your profit because we are social business. Our job is to put you in the orbit. Once you are in the orbit, our job is done. If you want to do the second cycle, come back again. And nobody is abandoned. Your business may fail too, and we know that. But your business failing means our business fails. So don't worry that you are not the one that we blame you. We blame ourselves. How did you miss it, and so on. We work again. We will not say that, oh, now that you failed, give us the money. You have no obligation to give us the money. So let's work together, make it successful. Our job is to make it successful. And in the second round, you make it successful. Gradually, you pay back all the money that you give you, and the whole company is yours. So this is the whole idea. So you have to redesign the banking system, investment design, social venture capital. The present venture capital is how to make big money out of the ventures, and selective and so on, whatever. You lose money and then you move on to something else. We are saying, no, everybody has to come, and that creativity inside of them is there. All you need to do is to help them to unleash that creativity by putting that financing behind it. And one way I said, if you put money on the table, everybody will be entrepreneur. Simply that is missing factor. So since I don't have anything else, I have to work for you.
So you started this new entrepreneurship program. You write in the book about it because you'd been worried about all the kids of Grameen borrowers who scrimped and saved and got their kids to go to university, and then they were like, no job. So
now it started that way. Now I see it's happening for the whole world. What happened in Bangladesh?
Okay.
Now artificial intelligence is coming. The moment I came to New York this time for the UN Assembly meeting, General Assembly meeting, one of the first things I was having a meeting with all the big tech gurus. They said, you know, you're from Bangladesh. You should be very cautious now. I said, well, what did you do wrong again? He said, you have a thriving garment industry. And your prime businesses in the garment industry, you are the second largest garment producer in the whole world. After China, we are number 2. So our economy is very much tied with that. He said, but that garment industry will disappear in 10 to 15 years. I said, how? How come? Because they're coming up with the artificial intelligence for garment industry. And it will be introduced very soon. And one after another, you see, suddenly disappeared because nobody is interested for cheaper labor anymore. No labor is needed. You see, without labor, you have your garments according to your specification in the best possible manner. And you don't have to go to Bangladesh again because you went to Bangladesh because of cheap labor. So it will be happening in the backyard of their own companies and make it happen as they need. So all the ancillary businesses attached to the garment, the shipping, packing, and all that, these are printing, all this will disappear because you don't have that. He said, I said, how much time you give us? He said, between 10 to 15 years.
Wow.
So it's not only happening in Bangladesh, it's happening globally. So where do you go? It's not talking about the unemployed people. We are talking now about the employed people. Employed people who will suddenly see they have no employment. And it's happening. Large factories are run in China. I'm sure it's in the US too, where hardly there is any people working there. It's all robotics happening, making things happen and so on. So this is the danger. It's just not simply a theory went wrong. The theory is just not applicable in a situation like this. They didn't imagine that kind of technology. And one of the mega power I mentioned is the technology.
Right.
It's to drive the whole world in a completely different direction.
You talk about 3 big mega powers, right? The young and old in
And,
our freedom
social
phase.
freedom, you are in the freedom phase.
I'm in the freedom phase. Retirement has been banned in
Yes,
your,
absolutely.
right?
I said, why should anybody retire? That's my
Yes,
question.
It's called
Human beings never retire.
the freedom phase.
Freedom phase.
Young and old, technology, and what's the third mega power?
Social business, you're missing the...
No, the governance.
Governance, good governance.
Yeah,
Good governance.
good governance and
Sure.
human rights.
Yes.
If you haven't been teased already to buy this book, you should. It's a fascinating read about how we get out of this deep crisis and mess. Who's got a question in the room? Because I've got lots and lots there. The people with the roving mics, can you get to the woman with the hand here? Who else has mics? Can I get a mic up here, please? And who else has a mic? There was someone in the middle of the... Who had a question there? Pass it to... Yeah, okay. First question. What's your name?
My name's Leah. Leah Miss
Please,
Bakde.
go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Yunus, I'm a big fan of yours. I'm super excited to hear you transcend this massive journey from feeding people with yogurt, affordable food, to solar power to save, climate change and big stuff like that. What I'm really trying to understand here is this human nature piece and redefining what we call profit. And I appreciate that you've already talked about that. But human nature, the three things we're designed to do: procreate, compete, and what's the third one? Thrive. With profit and this almighty dollar as the goal, how do we continue this human nature for competition and satisfying profit, and then instill this idea of serving others?
Thank you, Leah. If you grab the mics back,
Yeah.
and do you want to get a
Yeah, I
couple?
think-
Who's got the second mic?
I do.
Here,
You want all the
Papa?
questions at once?
Yep.
Okay.
Just what we're trying to do is actually get a few questions quick on the table, so please go ahead.
Well, I'm also delighted to be here. I've been a fan for a long time. I am specifically thinking about what's happening right now in Puerto Rico and how some of the tenets of your social business might be applied to the devastation of their infrastructure. It seems to me that what is happening is that they're priming that for privatization. And I personally believe that a lot of what you're talking about can be applied in that particular environment, particularly social business and solar power and things like that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what your ideas
Thank you.
about that would be.
And the
Can I
last
go
one?
back?
Yeah.
Two of them?
Yeah, you can do two. You used to be able to do three, but go ahead.
That's good to get this two out. One on the profit idea, that the fundamental thing. And that question came to me many times and saying, if you take the profit idea from the table, the whole economy will collapse, because this is the incentive which moves the whole economy forward. This is so critical. This is the key linchpin in the whole system. So vital. How do you dare to take this out and still hope that it will continue? I said I agree completely with you that yes, it is a very powerful incentive, but only thing I differ, it's not the only incentive. There are many incentives in life. So there are incentives which is not profit-based incentives. I try to explain it by saying, look, making money is a happiness. That's the incentive that you follow. Making money is happiness, but making other people happy is a super happiness. So if you can follow that, you'll forget. So once you got into that super happiness, you'll be regretting that how come you got stuck with that happiness only, never moved into the super happiness. So it's a question of how you feel inside of you, that's all. It's not what is written in the book that this is it. It is the question of, do I express myself in this way or do that way? What is the purpose of my life? That's the ultimate question. You have to deal with it. Our young people have to deal with it. What do we do when we're here? This is the one. About Puerto Rico, yes, of course. Bangladesh is a country of disasters. We keep on having this disaster one after another. And Susan was just mentioning recent one that we have with the natural side, and from the neighbor side, the Rohingyas coming into our country in a big way. Suddenly, people who we didn't expect to rush into our border. And now we already have 500,000, and soon we'll have 1 million. And total Rohingya population in Myanmar or Burma is about 1 million. So they're totally cleansing them out in a very atrocious way. So this is another problem that we have. What we do in the regular, the natural floods and disasters, cyclones, which is another one, we have very standard, within Grameen Bank, we have very standard rules, procedures. How do we handle disasters? We have disaster policy. It says the moment you are hit by a disaster, you announce that this is a disaster area, branch manager or whoever is in charge. You don't have to consult anybody higher up because the disaster, they are not aware of it. So the moment you declare disaster, then all the banking, all the financial system stops. You don't consider yourself a financial institution anymore. Don't go after people to give money or take money and all those. You become a humanitarian organization. Your first job is to save people. Save people and their families and their children and everything. You devote all your resources into it. That's your job now. So that you don't have to be in a confused situation. And you do that, if it's a flood, bring them to the dry place, which is very rare at that time, and save their children, and give them housing, give them food, give them medical attention, and all that. Use bank's resources, and particularly focus on Grameen Bank borrowers. They are the owners of the bank. So you cannot just sit there where the owners are drowned in the flood and so on. So this is standard. And we go on policy, and as soon as the flood recedes, your first job is to put them on their feet again. They have lost their cattle, they have lost their business, so you go and start fresh loans again, so that whatever they can do, start again. If they can make 1 penny a day, help them to make that 1 penny a day. Don't let them sit, because they will like to do, but now they don't know what to do. So you are the resource for them, and help them so on. So you have a regular policy. How do you do that? How you continue with it in a very elaborate way. Same thing applies for any disaster situation. That it's not just suddenly something happened and each one has to struggle by themselves.
You have to pay your loan back first?
Oh yeah,
you get help?
loan is never forgiven.
No, I'm talking about Puerto
Simply, that loan becomes a long-term loan. We said, don't worry about that. We worry about it later. Second loan, that fresh loan that we gave, that is the current loan you concentrate on. The other loan will take care when you are comfortable, you say that, yes, we can. And our system is, no matter how long it takes to pay the loan back, your total interest can never exceed your total principal. So it will not multiply into big number. It will maximum, it will go, whatever loan you took, it could be double the size over many years if you do that. So that way they are not worried about it. So they want to concentrate on fixing the home, building a home, buying the new cattle or whatever business you have to go back to, you go back to that. And then the social business of healthcare, social business of renewable energy, social business of other things can grow with alongside.
So Puerto Rico's got an opportunity, but it's reinventing and everything there, right? Rescheduling the debt. We've got one question picked out from the live stream about women's roles. Are they involved in every level of social business? And how do we encourage women to enter management positions and start their own, and not just micro, but larger scale businesses? And we've got a question here. What's your name? Go ahead.
Alat, thank you so much. So critics of social banking will argue that the sustainability of social banking rests on a capitalistic society or a system, right? You need the Dannons of the world to finance Grameen Bank or its $500,000 initiative for those types of things to go on. So how do you respond to those criticisms?
We are not waiting for Danone to finance something. We are interested to explain to Danone what social business is. Once they understand what social business is, their business. It's not our business anymore. So they have to find the money, like the case I gave you. They found the money in their own way. Initially, they were rejected with the money. They couldn't find the money, even if they're a big company. But since it got into their head, they didn't give up. They came up with another idea, and which turned out to be a super idea. because it energized everybody in the system and so on. So that way, we have another company, McCain. I have a story about McCain also. McCain is a Canadian company. When they met me to know more about social business, how do they get involved in it, I asked them, what is McCain? What do you do? They feel a little embarrassed because I don't know about such a mega company. They said, do you eat French fry? I said, yes, I eat French fry. Next time you eat French fry anywhere in the world, remember, it may be McCain French fry. I said, oh my God, you're big. He said, yes, we are big. We control the 60% of the French fry business in the whole world. You go to any McDonald's, you're eating McCain French fry. That's what we deliver. So they became interested in social business. It's a family-owned company. The family is very interested in the subject. So we create social business along with them in Colombia, and we run it. It's a beautiful program. But the point I was making, they got so energized. They have a big business in France. So their France director, the European director of McCain, he said, we never knew that this kind of business could happen. So now that we know it, we start seeing things we never saw before. 26% of the potatoes grown in France are thrown away. I said, how come? Because 6% of the potato cannot be retrieved from the soil. Big machines they use cannot pick up all the potato. 6% in general is left out. And 20% they cannot buy and farmers cannot sell because they are not in the right shape of French fry. See, shape is such important because machine doesn't give them a good yield out of this de-shaped according to their specification. So we don't buy them. We cannot make French fry, we cannot make shapes out of it. So farmers throw it away. So now that we got into social, this is a problem we never noticed. We thought this is part of business. Now we got into social business, suddenly we see, why are we throwing away? This is good food, it's a waste. So we created a social business to collect all those potatoes and create new implements, not big machine, to hand pick all those potato under the soil, get as much as possible, and then create a social business potato soup. Soup doesn't need a shape. Very simple solution. And that encouraged them to see something else. 30% of the vegetables grown in Europe, whole Europe, 30%, it's a business standard, 30% is designated as ugly vegetable. They are thrown away. Because you don't, in the supermarket, consumers don't want to buy a cucumber which is fat on one end, thin on another end. They were explaining to me, in supermarket, the consumers want all the vegetables in military formation. Same size, same shape, same color. So those they do not fit, they are thrown away. We don't buy it because consumers don't buy it. They don't have any use for it. So now they extended that business to buy up all the ugly vegetables. And this word, I'm not discovering it, inventing it. This is the standard business term. If you go Google into it, you'll see that. It's ugly vegetables. They buy up all the ugly vegetables. What they do? They chop them off and make ready-to-cook vegetables in a nice little packets. So everybody loves it. Because once you chop them off, they don't have a shape. The crime they committed. The shape is disappeared. And it's a big business. And they designed it not to make money for themselves, as a social business. They said, this is not our business. We got into it because we can do it. And we can bring that vegetable back into the market. All the waste can be done. So this is the spirit of what happens. It's not just whether you get $1 from here, $1. If you have in your head, that bug will bite you. They will drive you to do things which you never did before.
So we'll close with our last question about women. And not just about women's leadership roles and participation, but since we broached the subject of ugly vegetables and having to fit into a particular shape, you might want to share the story of how Spanx has gotten into this business of social business funds too.
Well, Grameen is totally now dedicated to the women. 97% of our borrowers, out of 9 million borrowers in Bangladesh. That idea was brought into the United States many times before, every time failed. In 2008, I was challenged to do it myself. But why don't you do it? Because I was insisting it can be done. So we started in Jackson Heights in New York, first branch, in 2008, January, and came out as a beautiful Grameen branch. with 100% repayment and so on, and very soon came into sustainability. You cover all the costs that you spend behind the branch itself. Now we have 20 branches all over the United States, and we lend out to over 100,000 borrowers now, all 100% women. And they have received over $1 billion in loan, and repayment is still 100%. It's New York has 7 branches, Charlotte, North Carolina, Omaha, Nebraska, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Houston, and many others. 11 cities have them. So this is the kind of thing. You focus on it, it works on it. And in the social businesses, we have what we call 7 principles of social business. We said that all social business must have consciousness, gender consciousness, and climate consciousness. This is a part of the social business. If you're doing social business, this must be an integral part of it. So that's why we do that. In the Grameen Bank, it's owned by the women because they are the borrowers, they own, and they sit in the board. They make the decision about the company, so they are in the leadership role in that sense. So this is a kind of a goal that we set as more and more comes out. We re-emphasize that don't forget those 7 principles.
That's so great. And you managed to recruit the CEO of Avon.
Yeah, she's the head of Grameen
Andrea
America.
Young is the CEO of Grameen America.
There's another interesting thing. She's the CEO of Avon, and she is in the board of Apple. She's in the board of Delmar, and automobile giant, and so on. And she came to me that I want to quit my job. I want to see if you can use me in Grameen America.
She wanted some super happiness,
Super
right?
happiness, exactly. She just quit the job, and we hired her for becoming the CEO of Grameen America.
And Sarah Blakely, who's now a billionaire, right?
Sure, yeah.
In fact, I think Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx,
Yeah.
The ladies in the room might know about this product. The men may have seen it but not realized it. She started with $5,000, like many of your customers now in America with these kinds of loans, and is a billionaire. And she is the first billionaire who's a woman to sign the Global Giving Pledge, right?
Yeah.
And what's that pledge going to do?
Minimum, you give away half of your wealth before you die to charity.
And we've got like 150
Probably 160 plus now. There are many joining in.
Mega
so that's
billionaires.
an enormous amount. Some of them gave 75%, some of them gave more than that.
Yeah, so maybe this mushroom cloud has a chance of getting
Some slice
chopped
down.
up
Yeah.
and becoming soup. Please, I want to have everyone have a chance to buy the book and have it signed, enjoy a cocktail with the cash bar. But first, please help me to thank the incredible Professor